Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Skeptic Hangout, the place where we sit back, relax, and chit chat about intriguing and sometimes controversial topics through the lens of skepticism. With us today is Richard Gilliver from Skeptic Takeout, Laura McGee from Unapologetically Me, and Richard Gill from the Yorkshire Atheist. Today, we're going to be talking about homeopathy. So, grab your English tea or your soy peppermint mocha and join us as we discuss just how much medicine needs to be in medicine in order to be medicine. This is episode 43, Homeopathy. So, gentlemen, homeopathy. Who wants to delve into what exactly that is? Because I'm willing to bet there's a lot of people out here who have no idea what we're talking about.
I'm one of them.
Really?
As far as I understand it, it's basically enhancing the body's ability to cure itself with a minute kind of stimulus of an active ingredient.
Kind of like if you hint at it, like your body can just do the rest itself, right?
Well, I think there's like two main sort of concepts, isn't there, in homeopathy? One's that like cures like. So if you've got something that's like a skin complaint, then you'll use something which causes skin irritation in order to cure the skin irritation. But then there's the dilution of it, so that you dilute like 1 part to like 99 parts water, and then you mix that all up, and then you take 1 part of that solution and combine it with 99 parts of water, mix that up and take 1 part of that solution and combine it with 99 parts of water, and you keep going until you've done that. Like, so there are literally 0 molecules of the original substance in there, because the water remembers the thing that you put in and has its energy, and so therefore
Yes. Okay. So yeah, I'm glad that Gil kind of has a good idea about what it, because that is where homeopathy really gets wooey. Like, it wasn't just wooey when you cut down something and say, oh yeah, this like 10% aspirin is just as good as the 100% pill or whatever, like it gets far worse than that. Yeah. It to the point where, James Randi does this thing where he takes a whole bottle of like homeopathic medicine. And he says in this whole bottle, it's practically 0% whatever it is, right? And I can't remember if it's like stomach, like a Alka-Seltzer type replacement, like where it's for stomach acid or something like that. But he literally takes the whole bottle, and the whole bottle is just sugar and whatever the medium is that you would put the medicine in, right? And it's really, really fascinating when you hear the explanation of what these pills actually are. And Gil just nailed it. Like, it's diluted and then diluted and then something like 10, what is it, like 10 times or 100 times, but it's all magic numbers, right?
Well, there are different sort of concentrations in inverted commas, but obviously the weaker the solution, the stronger the potency. It was something like, if you do it like 30 times, in order for there to be enough water to match the like, say if you had 1 molecule of the original substance, the amount of water that you would need for there to be 1 molecule of it in the water solution will be something like a sphere of water that its diameter was like the distance from the Earth to the sun, or something. Like something crazy. And again, I'm probably misremembering a slight detail of that, but it's something in that order of size. And like, really worryingly, it's like homeopathy and homeopathic remedies are like prescribed on the NHS in their thousands every year.
I did not know that.
Yeah, because GPs are free to prescribe what they feel is necessary for the patient, and there are lots of GPs, and it seems to be 10 times more prevalent in Scotland than elsewhere in the UK. But apparently, like I think there's been like over 60,000 prescriptions a year or something over the last few years in the UK for homeopathic remedies, which is obviously in sort of direct contravention to the whole duty of doctors to, prescribe courses of treatment which are evidence-based and are proven.
Okay, so now I've got to get really controversial on you for a second here. Do you think, and this is speculation, but do you think that it's because like doctors are like, yeah, your ailment is not really an ailment, and we're gonna throw you a placebo, and if you come back to me and still have complaints, then we'll talk, right? Like, do you think that maybe, or are they really sold on the idea that it really does something?
I've seen evidence that there are doctors, like general practitioners in the UK, who do fully stand by the concepts of homeopathy, in addition to those of modern medicine. But yeah, I can completely see how if they've got someone who either they think there's nothing there and it's all psychosomatic, or they themselves have literally run out of options and they know that the homeopathic remedy is on the list of things they can prescribe, and well, we might as well try this, and if they know it's sugar water and whatever else and it's not going to do any harm, then yeah, who knows the real reasons when you get down to it, but it still happens a lot.
I find that really harmful, even the best case scenario, if the doctors know they're prescribing it as a placebo, the fact that they're encouraging people to take a homeopathic remedy, where these people might go elsewhere than the NHS instead of seeking proper medical guidance, I think that in itself is dangerous. That's really worrying to me.
Yeah, here's where I want to break down the woo-woo bit of it, just in case it was kind of missed or we glossed over it too much in the beginning. So there's a sort of a concept that's easy to understand, right? Like of diluting something. Like, okay, so I've got cough syrup, and say I have an adult prescription of cough, not prescription, but like over-the-counter cough syrup, and I want to give some to my kid. So I'm gonna dilute it, like make it just a fraction of what it would normally be, and I'm gonna give it to my kid. Like there's that sort of diluting aspect where the medicine is still present, but it's in a smaller amount. And even that can be dangerous or sort of woo-wooey because you just don't know. Like you're not the scientist, you're not the doctor.
Like that happens in when adults in the UK take paracetamol a lot for a headache or a cough or a cold, and we have children's equivalents with a much lower dose of paracetamol in there, which is in a suspension that they can take that tastes nice or whatever, and it's the same drug but just in a slightly more diluted form.
Yeah, it's a more diluted amount.
Measured out because they've got smaller bodies and we have larger bodies.
Exactly. So that's not what homeopathy is, though. So homeopathy is the idea that water has certain magical properties. And I use the term magical very, very literally and deliberately, right? Like they think that water can rearrange itself to take on the properties or to have the essence of whatever is put in it. And therefore the water itself has the healing property. I'm fairly certain this is like an ingenious scam when it was first created. Like the guy had to, like, I just imagine him like cackling evilly in his lab. Like, okay, we're going to make a whole bunch of money by selling fucking sugar water. Right. And here's how we're going to do it. But the idea is that the water hangs onto the original property of the drug, and then you dilute it, and the new water hangs onto the original property of the drug, and you dilute it further to the point where the original drug itself does not exist. And I think anyone will admit that. I don't think anyone says, oh, no, the drug is still there. They know that the drug has been diluted out of this mixture.
And
that
interestingly,
the water contains
your
the
use of
essence
the word drug there, because it's not always even that.
Or chemical or whatever it is. Yeah. You're right. I do use drug a little bit liberally, but whatever chemical it is that's supposed to produce some sort of healing property in our body, they know that chemical is essentially not there anymore. But the drug contains the ingredients or the essence or the instructions for our body to do the healing for itself with this water that's now magically imbued with this chemical. And that's where I think there's a huge difference between homeopathy and just taking something in smaller doses or diluting a substance and selling it as being just as effective, right? It takes on sort of a whole new sinister sort of aspect in my mind.
Yeah, I think sinister is a really good word for it. And when you started talking and I started laughing when you were talking about the kind of new age properties, it was because I was remembering back to Richard saying water memory.
Yeah, that's a big part of homeopathy, is that water has a memory.
It was just that kind of that. I mean, when things get that new age and bullshit, it's sad and it's scary that people will go for it, and it's astounding to me that it's prescribed on the NHS. I didn't know that, and that scares the fuck out of me, if I'm perfectly honest.
Like since 2019 or something, the British Medical Council has like prohibited it from being prescribed because it's not proven or evidence-based, but apparently it still happens like very regularly. I don't know the up-to-date statistics on it, but it's
that'd be interesting to find out, because what we have is like this sort of, we train people to be doctors, but they're not necessarily trained in things like skepticism or whatever. Like, you can get through school and become a doctor and have your medical degree and treat patients and be like a dogmatic, incredibly religious, have all these like new age thinking, other ideas. Like we think that, oh, because you have a doctor degree, you're somehow like immune to this shit, and you're really not. And that's something that's kind of frightening if you think about it.
And you can understand
Skepticism
people going along with, what their general practitioner advises. If you go to the doctor with an ailment and they're recommending this course of treatment, why would you not, automatically trust that? I can understand people going ahead with it, but it is concerning, like you said, the fact that there are doctors with those sorts of viewpoints in the first place, practicing in general practice.
And that's where people's professionalism sometimes takes a backseat to the personal things, and it shouldn't be the case. There was some fucking, and I've got to say, there were some fantastic medicine practitioners out there who have, different religious beliefs and different, but even new age beliefs, who don't imprint those beliefs on the professional practice. And, hats off to them for doing that and for remaining professional. And to those that do, fucking sort yourselves out. Skepticism should not only be taught in medical school, it should be taught in school, full stop. Get me and Laura and Richard out into schools and teaching skepticism without the cursing.
Just period. Skepticism, critical thinking, problem solving, all of that stuff. You don't even have to tell a person what to believe. Just tell a person how to look at the world, right? Like give them the tool of discovering it for themselves, right? I think that you're spot on. Is it time for commercial break?
It certainly can be a couple of minutes before, but let's go for it.
Perfect, because I'm thinking let's jump to commercial break. And when we get back, I kind of want to discuss, because you were talking about homeopathy and the medical profession, right? And there's sort of a misunderstanding, at least there was in my mind, between homeopathy and home remedies. So I kind of want to get into some of the nuances and differences between that and how it ties into the medical community.
So what have we got going on? Last week, I jumped in and advertised myself first because I was so excited.
Keep it up. I like it. You're saving the best for last anyway. You just keep going first.
I'm going to hand you over to Laura so we can find out what Laura's got going on.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, so if you're listening to this episode when we first put it out, last week I was on secular sexuality. I'm sure it was a blast. And I'm probably looking forward to being on again because I love that show and what they represent and what they're doing. But this week on Sunday will be the airing of my latest adventures with nonprofits. So I will be conducting that one, which is always fun. So check that out if you want to catch us with the live premiere where you can have live chat. Then that will be Sunday, December 12th. Or you can catch it like after that, pre-recorded. And same with secular sexuality. Like if you didn't catch last week's episode, check it out and then let me know what you guys think and
wonders of modern technology.
I know, I love it. What's cool is we're recording this like a couple weeks before this, so it's all jumbled. But
I always love the timey-wimey thing of you talking about something in the past because you know that we're recording this before something you're going to record in the future, but this will be released after that. So you're talking about things in the past, in the future, in the past, in the future.
I'm in the past talking about things that I did in the future that I haven't actually done yet, but will have done by the time this airs. I love it. It's so cool. Gilbert, what about you? What have you got coming up?
I've been sitting on this for months, and I'm not even lying. I've been sitting. A handful of people know about this. I am going to be on Truth Wanted, and I am so excited about it. Truth Wanted, like Secular Sexuality and like the non-profits, is an ACA production. We're all the ACA is close to all of our hearts here, and I'm so excited. It's the first call-in show I've done for the ACA, and I love the call-in format.
I love
absolutely
Truth
love the call-in format.
I'm excited for you. I was one of the ones that knew. I've kept my mouth shut. I've been good, kept your secret, but I'm excited for you. Yeah, I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I don't know who's hosting. I don't know whose guest I am. The regular hosts, friend of our show, Puck, and Dan, and ex-Christy and Erin. So I'm not sure who I'm going to be on with, but I don't care. I'm just so giddy and excited about being on there. And I am now officially an ACA host as well, thanks to our friend, Mr. Johnny P. Angel. So I'm cool. Just like, I've just got lots of excitement in my life around the ACA and hosting for them and things now. So I'm really looking forward to Truth Wanted.
There's something about interacting live with people that I find so satisfying. I love doing these pre-recorded shows and just chit-chatting with my other hosts. Like, that's a really good time. But when you get people live on the line and you're kind of having to think of things on the fly and really engage your brain and engage your social skills and stuff, like, to me, it's just, there's something that's elevated about it. It's so much fun.
There is the aspect of what we do where we don't hold the opinions that we kind of interrogate in. And so sometimes that's limited because there's only so far we can go with it, or we don't know what a natural sort of, next step or thought process would be, or,
Having those people, especially on shows like Ethan Michael's fantastic show, The Perspective, which me and Laura have both hosted, and Truth Wanted, which I'm going to be on, and having that kind of, you don't know what the person's going to, who you're talking to, who calls in, is going to be talking about. You don't know what they're going to be talking about. You don't know where they're going to take the conversation, and it's so exciting. It literally is. As Laura, for me, it's so heightened. These round table discussions are fantastic. I absolutely love them, but there is nothing like talking to someone and having a civil conversation with someone who's got opposing views to you. It's absolutely brilliant. That is where skepticism comes in action. And you can put it down and you can have a conversation and you can change people's minds and you can have your mind changed. And I love it. It's absolutely fantastic. So I am so looking forward to that. So I've been sat on it for so long. I'm like a giddy child on his birthday.
I'm so glad you're finally able to announce it. Yeah. And I can't wait to see you on it. It's going to be a good time.
Great.
But enough about other shows. What about us? Where can you find us, Richard? How can you interact with us?
Well, I mean, it depends on your sort of initial perspective. So, I mean, if at the moment you can see all three of our shiny, beautiful faces, you're probably on YouTube. In which case, if there's a button down underneath us which says subscribe rather than subscribed, that's probably your first part of call. Click that one, click the bell, and then we'll see you again soon. If you can't see our beautiful faces but can only hear our beautiful voices, then you probably already subscribed to our podcast feed on either Spotify or Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts or Stitcher, or various other podcast related apps. But if you're not subscribed on there, that's a really good option. So you'll hear our insightful, witty, enthusiastic commentary on various topics in the future. Additionally, because I know sometimes people, even if you subscribe to things, it's easy to sort of lose track of things and whatnot. On our Facebook page and the related Facebook discussion group are excellent sources of links and reminders source of debate and conversation, amusement and entertainment as well. I know if you're excited about sort of Jiliba's upcoming Truth Wanted thing, and you've got some built-up excitement inside you like Jiliba has, fuel that excitement into the purchasing of some merchandise, which is a great way to support our show financially, as well as getting some cool Skeptic Hangout things to own.
You can get lots of things, like if you're watching this, if you're watching rather than listening, you can get my boobies. Which
you cannot get his boobies, but you can get the shirt
also
on them.
Get things like this mouse mat, which says "Keep questioning, interrogate your beliefs, and stay skeptical."
I love it.
It's interesting because like you've got the mouse mat and you're showing it off, and we do sell mouse mats, but you are, I think I'm right in saying, the only person I know who owns a mouse mat. But I mean, it's a good option. It's a good option for anyone.
Right? Especially if you have one of those mice that actually have the little roller ball on it that requires the mouse pad. You definitely need to get one of our mouse pads.
Rollerball mouse not included.
And maybe a new mouse while you're at it.
Yeah. But yes, you can find the links to all of those wonderful places, avenues, and sources of us at our Linktree page, which is linktree/Skeptic Hangout.
Fantastic. Back to the show. Okay, so welcome back from commercial break. Just as a reminder, we were talking about the sort of nuances between homeopathy and home remedies and what the differences are. I have something like kind of specific I want to say on this, but I want to hear your guys' initial thoughts first and see if they line up at all with mine or kind of where your mind goes when you hear about that.
Well, I think that, I mean, home remedies, I don't really, to me, home remedies is, if you smash your arm, having a look at it and not going to a doctor and seeing if you can kind of identify the thing yourself. That's how I consider. I don't really do the whole short of sticking. This now you need to try this if you've ever got a sore throat. Stick a shitload of honey in cold ice cream and eat that, because that will fucking sort your sore throat right out.
That my friend is a home remedy. So you do know. So you had like this total misperception. Oh, home remedy means not seeking medical help, and then you're like, but I have this home remedy for you, right? So that to me is exactly what a home remedy is like just regular everyday things that help soothe or relieve pain or relieve symptoms. Not that they cure. Like I don't think there's a home remedy for like cancer. I don't think there's a home remedy like maybe for specific antibiotics for specific maladies. But
it's things like if you get a nettle sting, rubbing a dock leaf on your nettle sting is something that relieves some of that pain, for example. I mean, in terms of like homeopathy, like the roots of the word, the homeo at the beginning comes from, it's the same as like homo as in meaning the same, like homosexual or homo sapiens and stuff. And then pathy obviously to do with illness.
Which means what?
Sorry, homo.
Homo means the same. Yeah.
That's what it means, the same.
Yeah.
The same. Yeah. So like
that's what it means in homo sapien and homosexual. Like homosexual means same sex, like attracted to the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And obviously like pathos coming, like talking about disease or illness, and that's from that whole idea of the like cures like, so the thing that you're trying to cure, you cure it with that thing. Mm-hmm. And so, but then I guess there is that sort of then misconception in terms of like you were saying about like home remedies and things, because it has that similar sort of sound to it.
Exactly.
And I think these sorts of things sort of feel like there may be a more natural way of dealing with an ailment or illness, a more sort of gentle way rather than chemicals and drugs and whatever else. And I can understand the appeal in that way. If people have got issues and they're skeptical about the side effects or the unknown consequences of taking pharmaceutical mass produced chemicals by the bucket load every day. But it also goes down to that whole thing of but they don't work. So
but they don't work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and so that's kind of why I bring it up, is because when I was first learning about homeopathy, that's where I made a mistake, and that's where a lot of the people in my sort of social group made a mistake, because it was sort of tied into home remedies. Like homeopathy was like, oh, that's the non-doctor way of doing it, or the way of doing it like sort of on your own, right? Where you're like what you were saying, where you're not taking all these heavy chemicals and like pharmaceutical drugs, and like there was a lot of weight to those words all of a sudden. Like it was very catchy or very trendy to sort of avoid pharmaceutical drugs and do your own remedies. And so that's where homeopathy for me, like when I was in my early 20s and I had my first child and I was seeking my own doctors and stuff, I actively sought out homeopathic doctors because I thought what I thought I was looking for was a doctor who would go to home remedies first and rely on heavy pharmaceuticals and medicines only when necessary, right? In my mind, that's what it was. And that was, I was hugely mistaken. And I did have a doctor explain that to me, and I was like, oh, I didn't know what homeopathy was, right? I kind of got my wires crossed. But the whole idea was to avoid like always going to a doctor and always going to these heavy, like serious solutions, when you could just have like tea and honey with some ginger in it, to soothe a sore throat. So I think if I'm any indication, and if people that I've talked to are any indication, there's sort of a disconnect or a misunderstanding about what homeopathy really is, which is what Gil was saying, like that whole woo-woo, cut it down with water, water remembers. I think a lot of times in our minds, it gets lumped in with home remedies. And that's where a lot of people make that mistake of not even knowing what it is that they're putting into their bodies. Right.
And is that even the idea of, homeopathy sounds like a sciencey, legitimate term for something like it, people don't, look into, I think it's really easy to not have looked into homeopathy in great detail. Like if you looked at any random sample of 100 people on the street, probably most of them will never have thought to look up what homeopathy is. But it's one of those words or terms that's in the consciousness of people. Like people know that word as a medically sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And even just the word itself sort of sounds legit, doesn't it? It's not saying magic water, it's saying homeopathic remedies, and I don't know. Yeah, it adds a bit of legitimacy.
Yeah, and it sort of plays on everybody's fears about pharmaceutical companies too, that like taking actual prescription drugs or over-the-counter drugs is somehow like, and it can be, they have warnings, right? But that it can be bad or unhealthy, right? Or that we're doing more harm to our body, or that we're feeding into a multi-big zillion trillion dollar, industry that is just out to get our money, right?
And that's where this is one of those things where legitimate kind of ideas and things feeds into the kind of conspiracy, because as an ex-wrestler, I have nothing but praise for prescription drugs, because my body hurts constantly. It really does. From waking up to going to sleep, I'm in pain.
Mm-hmm.
And but there are real serious dangers associated with prescription medicines.
Yeah.
And they kill people. In fact, I believe I'm right in saying that in the US, at least, they are one of the biggest killers as far as drugs go. They kill far more people than illegal opioids. The prescription drugs kill so many people because they are genuinely dangerous.
Yeah.
But at the same time, used properly, they're also very, very good.
Yeah.
There is also that sort of conflict of interest in America in terms of lots of doctors have financial incentives to keep people on certain prescriptions for a long period of time, which isn't necessarily the case in, the UK and stuff. But
which is unfortunate.
If you've got that clear choice between a drug which lots of people use but has a list of side effects as long as your arm, even if they've got 1 in 100,000 chance, 1 in a million chance, 1 in 10 million chance, compared to a homeopathic remedy which has 0 side effects because it is water. Like which, you can also see that as a really easy choice. I wouldn't go for that drug that has all the side effects when I can choose this one which has been proven to have none. That's an easy choice to make.
Yeah, and I think you both hit on exactly why homeopathy is still so popular despite its like crack pottery, is because it does play on that fear and it does speak really, really well to that fear. Like both the fear, like what you're saying of, well, this one has no side effects. It's gentle, it's natural, like your body is healing itself, yada 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 yada. But also and you're not paying into this big zillion dollar industry, right? And of course I'm being like hyperbolic about it, but like there is like both those things are really strongly in play, and I think that that's where, when we were talking about faith healing and how it really plays on people's fears and hopes and misunderstandings about a thing, I think homeopathy falls right in with faith healing, where
And
it's just
plus, I
another
think
way to exploit that.
because homeopathy, you get lots of like, really strong anecdotal evidence in inverted commas for it, in ways that you don't, because there's not the scientific evidence for it, so it doesn't have legitimate studies which prove its effectiveness against placebo or any of that. So you have by default, therefore, strong anecdotal evidence which doesn't necessarily exist for modern medicinal, like mainstream medicine. I can't speak.
Well, it does, but medicine, so the medical community doesn't
It's
count
got
anecdotal
papers to
evidence
back
as
it up, hasn't it?
evidence,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So,
if I'm taking a drug for a specific ailment, the singing and shouting about it is a peer-reviewed medical paper.
Yeah,
as
it's got a
opposed
scientific paper rather than Mavis from number 42.
Yeah. That was my point. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that that's a really good point, because I think in popular culture and popular society versus in medical or scientific communities, anecdotal evidence carries a lot more weight. Like, oh, this person said it works, that person said it works, this person swears by it, right? Like I'll give you an example. Like my friend, I have a friend who's from Japan, and she was like, well, I need to put like horse oil on my daughter's diaper rash. And I was like, don't put any oil on the diaper rash, because it needs to dry out, not be more moistened, right? Like it needs to be not, and it was getting worse and worse and worse. So I gave her a reference for something called butt paste, right? And it worked instantly. And she was texting me. I was like, because that stuff is developed and studied and tested to take care of diaper rash, and it has the compounds in it to calm the skin down and to solve the problem. Whereas when you put oil on it that your grandma swears by or that people have done for generations, you're heating that area up and you're not allowing it to dry out, and you're exacerbating the problem, but you're doing it because others swear by it, right? And she was just amazed at the difference, and maybe from our perspective she shouldn't have been. It should have been more common sense, but that's the reality of it, is people will hear that something works and they'll just keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it, but really you're making the problem potentially worse.
I feel cheated that the British Medical Association don't endorse butt paste.
Butt paste, dude, I swear by it, dude. If you guys get it, I mean, it's just diaper rash cream, but some
we
person
would
with a
call
sense of humor.
bum paste over here, though, wouldn't we? It would be
Bum
bum
paste,
paste rather than
that's
butt
probably
paste.
good too. Yeah. But you guys have your diaper rash creams. I don't know, what's a popular one called?
Bepanthen.
Panthen?
Bepanthen, so it's medicinal sounding. Bepanthen. But even
Yeah,
like
that's not as much as butt paste. I'm
What,
sure
what's the one in the grey tub?
Yeah, Sudocrem.
Sudocrem is Jesus cream, because it
Jesus
heals
cream.
everything.
Everything.
It literally heals everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
Like you amputate an arm, it'll heal it.
Back next day, bit of Sudocrem on.
It tingles a bit, but it works.
We seem to have gone a little bit off TikTok.
Well, it's interesting, like that. Just the names of medicines can get us down a rabbit hole. But I think the point is still valid, that like homeopathy and some of these more ineffective home remedies are going to continue to be circulated around because of exactly what Gil said, and that is anecdotal evidence and the she said, he said that this really, really works, right?
Yeah, that's sad.
Yeah,
it's and again, we've already said it once this episode, but it comes down to education. skepticism should be, or critical thinking, if you don't like the word skepticism, because some people have an aversion to it or a misunderstanding of it, it's critical thinking. Just teach it, just educate people about it, because it's, we say it a million times. It's not just the case that, you might have a slight cold and it's not being cured by Mavis at number 42's remedy. It's also the case that you're not going to get ripped off by the dodgy insurance salesman or car seller or email. And it's so important. It's that having basic critical thinking skills is so, so important, especially when it comes to medicine. We talked about this in the Faith Healers episode, but it's true, and it can't be emphasized enough.
Yeah, there's actually studies out there that show like the people who go, it's they call it like the morbidity rate, or there's another one. There's morbidity for when the patient passes away, but then there's also a term for quality of life, and I can't remember what that is. But where you can measure if the quality of life improves or decreases, or whether or not there's a morbidity rate. And I'd love to find the study, but I know that there's studies out there that do show that like people will report like, oh yeah, this happened and I felt better and I took this medicine and I was better. Then you track them over a long period of time and their symptoms come back, and or they have this ongoing problem that gets worse, or they die from it. Like especially if it's something like cancer and they're taking fucking homeopathic pills to cure cancer, right? Now you have people who are getting worse and dying um because they're putting their faith in something that's completely bullshit.
Yeah, and I think from the outset in Richard's initial uh, uh, assessment of what homeopathy was, I think this is, out of all the kind of dodgy subjects we've talked about, I think this is the one that kind of, to me, springs up as the most kind of new age and fanciful of everything we've ever talked about. Just even the terminology we've used without even meaning to describe it is just fanciful. it's amazingly bad.
I feel like it's the sort of thing where if you explained the concepts behind it to a very young child, even a very young child would be like, that wouldn't work. And it's easy to say for things like, one of the things like when we were talking about evolution, for example, basically all of scientists agree that that's a thing and that it happened. And it's only people who are outside that sphere who seem to disagree. But then it does make it more complex, doesn't it, when you're a lay person and you do have medical professionals, in that avenue. It muddies the water a little bit to make it, it doesn't make it quite as clear cut for people in people's minds. You mentioned, Jill, earlier on about like, well, even if it is a placebo effect and it is helping people in that way, that's still sort of dangerous. And, if people are, stopping themselves from actually being helped rather than getting some sort of psychological help for an ailment or an illness or what have you, then the medical professionals who are, pushing people down that alley are really doing them a disservice in a really, to my mind, unethical way. Yeah, we don't have a cure for everything, and we don't have a magical drug that'll fix every single thing that can be wrong with someone. But likewise, I don't know, it's sort of, yeah, putting people in a position where really deep down, I imagine most people who practice it kind of understand that it's not meant to have any basis in sort of science and medicine and whatever else. I don't know. It's just,
I wonder what kind of those who subscribe to it in whatever capacity. I wonder how many of those do understand it and do understand that it's so diluted. And
but even for them though, like they'll have their own anecdotes of people they have helped, because placebo effect can be a powerful thing. And if you are doing something yourself which you see helps people, you don't need to know how it works you know that by carrying on doing it, you'll carry on helping people, even if the long-term bigger picture of that doesn't quite match up with those anecdotes.
Yeah, I think it gets really complicated morally when you talk about like, and I think Gilliver touches on this anytime we talk about anything involving like health or healing or anything, is the fact that so you have varying degrees, right? Like if you say, oh, this homeopathic pill cures your headache, and then you take it and sure enough your headache goes away, and it could have been placebo or like a rush of adrenaline or serotonin or whatever that made you feel better or whatever, and it has nothing to do with the pill itself, then that person starts believing in bad methodologies and bad approaches to curing their stuff. And so then when something worse happens, and it's the same thing with like the power of prayer. Like you're in a bad financial state and you like pray, and then you get a call for a job offer, and you're like, oh, look, God answered my prayer, right? But then when you get cancer and you're praying, it all kinds of works together. And I think Gilliver touches on this all the time, where the danger isn't in the actual individual act itself, it's in what it represents. It's in how you approach solving problems or how you approach other people's health, right? Like when you start saying, hey, I need you to go take this homeopathic pill because it worked for me, and it turns out that the person has a much more serious condition than what you have, right? So I think that when we talk about homeopathy, where it really gets me is in how it short circuits our logic and reasoning, and it inserts a solution that makes zero sense, right? But we're embracing it because we have bad epistemology or bad critical thinking. And I think that that can't be understated enough or overstated or whatever the case may be.
Gil.
I was just bathing in the silence.
Laura finally was quiet. I was enjoying myself.
Yeah, I think what Gilva said earlier on about education and people knowing about it is one of those things that probably won't even register on people's radars, because most people day to day are not in positions where they're in, even, looking for a remedy for something which might be, most people don't require homeopathic medicine. Well, nobody requires homeopathic medicine, what I'm saying. But like, no, most people are not in a position where they're actively seeking a remedy for something where homeopathy is an option which is presented to them.
Mhm.
But for the people that it does affect, it can affect them in a big way. And educating people, even just in a basic sense, about the ideas behind homeopathy and what it is, hopefully more people will be able to see that it's, irrational, doesn't make sense, and they should seek alternative sources of medical support and help.
I almost expected you to say alternative medicines.
No.
But of the irony.
So that's a really good closing thought. Gilliver, did you have a closing thought as well?
I came into this knowing virtually nothing about homeopathy. I've learned a little bit about it. It's not impressed itself on me in any way whatsoever. Throw it out. I don't know about the history of it. I don't care to. I just wish people would assess things a little bit better before jumping onto them. Dangerous ideas, perpetuate even more dangerous ideas, and in the case of medicine and health, unfortunately, that can directly correlate to loss of life. I don't think there's anything else I need to say on that subject.
Love it. I don't know if there's anything I can say about homeopathy. I think it's a great anecdotal evidence about the fact that our brains are absolute shit, right? Like it really speaks to the fact that we are not good at coming to conclusions and making determinations for ourselves, that we're very easily convinced about different things. And I'm questioning whether or not like education, I know that education decreases bad thinking, but I don't think it eliminates it altogether. In fact, in some ways, the more educated we are, the more confident we are in our decision making. And so when it is shit, we're less able to recognize it because we're more likely to be like, well, I know better because I'm very scientifically minded and I think homeopathy works. Right. So I think it is very telling, the fact that it exists and the fact that people buy into it and that it's such a big industry, maybe not compared to big pharmaceuticals, but it's a shockingly big industry. I think it speaks a lot to how far we still have to go with just how faulty our brains really are.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly why skepticism or critical thinking needs to be taught alongside science and from the earliest of ages.
All right. Anything else to say, Gil, before I close it up?
Yeah.
No. Okay. So thank you guys all for listening. Thank you guys for joining me. This was a really fun conversation. I say me as though it's my show and you guys are joining me, but thank you guys for letting me talk to you guys and join you. I don't know. Whatever this is, like I'm always, what's that?
You certainly sent us the Zoom link, so in that way we did join you.
Yeah. See, there you have it. Yeah, this is always a pleasure. I always enjoy these conversations. So thank you all for listening. Follow the conversation on Facebook. We'll catch you next time. In the meantime, we are Laura.
Richard.
And Richard. And this has been Skeptic Hangout. Until next time.
Keep questioning.
Interrogate your beliefs.
And stay skeptical.
Bye.
All right.
Bye-bye.